Jackie Aina had a very not great weekend. I mean, this situation made it onto the Yahoo News. My mama reads that. Before I break this all down, ahoy hoy family, it's your girl T, aka Nappy Headed Jojoba, not Nappy, not Jojoba, Nappy Headed Jojoba. You have to say the whole thing, it's like makeup game on point. Woo Chile. Black Twitter, specifically Nigerian Twitter, was busy this weekend. The yikes of it all. So, Jackie Aina, whomst you may know from these YouTube screets as one of the OG booty gurus, she don't do YouTube no more, but she does make candles. Well, she has a candle brand anyway. I don't know who actually makes the candles. And it seems that the brand is doing well because it's carried in Sephora. I think that's still a you know you've made it when, at least in the beauty sphere, when you've got shelf space at Sephora. Even now that Sephora is lightweight down bad. You feel me? Okay, so Jackie Aina's candle company just had a big event and social media launch for a new limited edition set of candles. And it went poorly. I mean, the party for the launch looked fine. Didn't invite me, and I'm sure that was just an honest mistake. The issue here was with the overall theme of this set of candles, especially in relation to the name of one of the candles in the set. The new collection is the this word collection, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, because even with help from my Nigerian friends on how I'm supposed to say it, I'm still not finna risk getting dragged by Niger Twitter. Anyway, this is a Nigerian word for a big party or a big celebration. Now, here comes the problem. One of the candles in this, again, celebration collection of candles, one of them was called this, which turns out is not a phrase that connotes anything celebratory. This is a protest rallying cry which was used so much during the End SARS protests against police brutality and corruption that the phrase more or less became synonymous with the movement overall and the state-sanctioned massacre of civilians in October of 2020 in Lagos. Although, to be clear, it's my understanding that this rallying cry predates both the massacre and the End SARS movement overall. So you can imagine that this might not be the best name choice for a candle in a collection about partying. To simplify, a comparison that many, really a lot of people have been making is that this would be like an influencer selling a perfume or something called Say Her Name, or even more on the nose, an Eric Garner and George Floyd set of I Can't Breathe candles. Oppression, but make it luxury. So with all of this over the weekend, Nigerian Twitter has been busy. I have never tried the Forever Mood candles, which in my head I always want to call Forver Mood or For VR Mood because that is how my eyes read it. I'm saying, either remove all of the vowels or none of them. I digress. Some of y'all know that syntax and grammar shit like this makes me homicidal. Anyway, I've never had the chance to try them candles because luxury candles are not my ministry. It's burning my hard-earned money a bit too literally for me, so I stick to the rivers and lakes that I'm used to, and my candle budget is $10 per. 15 means I'm splurging. Now, Jackie Aina is half Nigerian, I believe, so I do understand a possible desire to get a deeper understanding and immersion in that part of her heritage and to incorporate it into her aesthetic and even her brand with this release and this collection. I'm a diaspora baby too, so I understand. I've mentioned in videos before that my dad is Trinidadian, which makes me a Trini on one side, but even though my parents were together, my mom did the raising. So culturally, I'm Black American. It would be disingenuous for me to pretend that I'm immersed within my Trini heritage the same way that I am with my American side. That's the side of my family that I spent the most time with by far. Trust and believe I will tear up some stewed chicken and plantain given an opportunity, but my identity is much more rooted in my mom's side, the Brooklyn and later, once I came along, Queen side. Bridging that gap and getting to know my Trini roots better is something that I've chosen to pursue proactively over the past several years in order to better get to know my dad and myself. But real talk, I do think there's a perception amongst some people of being more marketable, more interesting, more exotic if you're not just Black American. Obviously, that's fucking absurd. Black American culture is the most influential culture worldwide, period. We are gaslit about this relentlessly by the same people imitating us, but that's another video. I'm just telling you what I'm clocking in these social media streets, and I think that's why much has been made of Jackie Aina supposedly cosplaying, not my word choice, as a Nigerian throughout the discourse of this latest scandal. I can't speak to that because it's not my place to police if someone is Nigerian enough. I'm just saying that as someone who also has one Black American parent and one Black non-American parent, depending on how involved either of your parents was in your life during your formative years, you may find yourself trying to learn more about your own culture as a whole-ass adult. I don't think anyone should be ridiculed for that. However, this business with this Eau de Oppression scented candle, this ain't it. And it seems to me that if this obviously bad idea was able to make it from inception to production to release, to then have to pull the product and most likely relabel them as something else to sell off that stock later on, I'm going to have to assume that Jackie herself didn't have a full understanding of the context of this phrase, or else she never would have used it in this way, right? On the other hand, even if she somehow, some way didn't know, it is someone's job to vet the potential names for things at any company when you're in the process of naming a new thing. Some of y'all already know my line of work, so whenever I'm developing a show or helping to launch a channel or whatever it is, we have to look around to see if someone else is already using the name we want, or if it has some kind of connotation that might be undesirable, and then send it to legal. It's a whole process. So I'm saying, a quick Google should have shut this down in about 3 minutes. Really, all of this tells me that no one on Jackie's team is looking out for her, because she evidently somehow didn't already know this was a horrible idea on her own. With however many people are on her team at Mood, however many Nigerian friends and family members she has, how come no one let her know that this was a terrible, tone-deaf, really, really bad call? This is kibble gender ending police brutality with a Pepsi level of bad. And it looks extra bad because she's also been accused by many detractors of not helping to raise awareness about NSARS when it was happening, and even blocking people who asked her to do so. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that this criticism is a slippery slope, honestly, because most of the time, when it comes to issues of actual consequence, what these influencers should say is nothing. On the other hand, if you are known as a Nigerian public figure by your own doing, I understand why there'd be an expectation that you at least use your platform to spotlight what's happening and help apply pressure. Personally, I wasn't paying attention to what influencers were or weren't doing, not then and not now. I remember reading about the October 20th, 2020 Tollgate massacre vividly, because it was both unreal and all too real. If you've ever been kettled during a protest or some other action, then you know. That day was just a really frightening display of the end game of fascism in real time. But if there's any truth to the accusations that Jackie Aina dragged her feet on helping to raise awareness about NSARS at the time, she sure has raised awareness about it now, albeit inadvertently. Influencers are damned if they do, damned if they don't, a lot of the time. When people were being slaughtered at that toll gate, I did my best to share information only from sources I considered to be reliable, and even that still comes with risk. When it comes to social issues, I understand being afraid of saying the wrong thing and getting dragged for it. But you'll also probably get dragged for saying nothing, especially if you're seen as part of or even just adjacent to the community or communities affected most. It's really gonna go bad if it seems like your silence is more about protecting your brand or your bag rather than genuine deference. So to now come out with a candle that, in a nutshell, monetizes protests against state violence while also insinuating that the rallying cry of a political movement where people were killed is on par with a yes queen, I'm mystified as to how things got this far over at Mood HQ, because all of it immediately no. After pulling the candles over the weekend, Jackie and the brand did issue an apology, and I think this person summed it up perfectly. But for everyone who wants to bankrupt Mood behind this blunder, I just hope y'all are keeping that same energy for Walmart, because the Waltons tried it. Remember that Juneteenth merch? It's the freedom for me. Y'all got me fucked up. So if you're calling for Jackie's head on a pike, you better not be shopping at Wally World neither. I'm dead ass. It's interesting that, like the example I gave earlier of this being like if someone made a say her name perfume, how people would be outraged. Now that I think about it, I'm sure that people have done that. I mean, not literally that. My example was intentionally tone deaf to make a point, but plenty of people have made merch and other things that monetize horrific events in history. I am certain that people have made Trayvon Martin hoodies or BLM candles and all sorts of things with exactly 0% of the proceeds going to the families of the victims. I mean, that's my problem with BLM, the organization, period. But we don't need to go down that road again. This whole thing is just a wow. I do think that this was a really, really, really bad idea, but I also gotta wonder how the folks over at For Vermood didn't dismiss this idea at the pitch phase. But I also think it's highly likely that Jackie Aina learned a hard lesson from this, and I do hope that her brand is able to weather this storm. My real ones know that I bought her eyeshadow palette way back when, purely to spite the people hating on her for dumb reasons at that time. I root for Black women to succeed even when they mess up, or sometimes do things that are absolutely baffling. So like I said, if all these people yelling at her on Twitter are still shopping at Walmart, then it's time to log off. You probably weren't buying her candles in the first damn place. Anyway, fam, that is gonna do it for today's quick sip about Jackie Aina's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad weekend. I mean, I hope it wasn't as bad as it seems to me, because from what I understand, I think it was also her birthday weekend. I feel like I read that in one of the articles. Dang. Obviously, this was a blunder, but I just say extend the same grace to her that you would extend to Target or Walmart or Macy's or any of these other big companies that people seem to have endless forgiveness for. But when it comes to an individual who, you know, is still probably figuring things out and is going to mess up, and mess up bad in this case, just extend that same grace. If you haven't canceled any of those big stores because they've messed up too, then don't cancel her. Until the next video, make sure y'all stay safe, stay dangerous, and never trust anyone who has all the smoke for Jackie but can't seem to summon that same energy for big companies like Walmart and Amazon. Bah!
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm gonna tell you that now.